So the first thing I want to do is prep up some garlic, chopped garlic that I'm going to saute in a little bit of olive oil. And once I do that, I'm going to add the bottled pasta sauce to the cooked garlic and let that simmer for half hour, give or take, depending on how patient I am and how hungry I get. So I bought at the market sleeve of a few fresh garlic bulbs. They didn't have them loose and singles, so I ended up getting 3 of them, which isn't too bad. I like garlic a lot, and I'm only going back and forth once a week, so what I don't use I can always either keep at my desk at the office and pick it up when I get back next week, or I can take it back home and use it to cook on the weekends. So we're going to want to peel the garlic, get the paper off, and you've probably seen the TV chefs do this with the side of their chef's knife to kind of smash the garlic. This is a handy trick. Just slap the knife down or rock it gently back and forth depending on how much you want to reduce your stress level and or bang things around. I did bring a chef's knife. I'm going to try and work primarily with the little picnic knife because as much as I like to cook with a full-size knife wherever possible, it's not really practical to carry all the time. So I'm going to see, going back and forth, how much of an inconvenience it is to use a small knife. This is a small picnic knife or general paring knife that we picked up to use for picnics, but it's, I thought, a good size to be something that I could carry as a travel cooking knife. And I think it'll depend a lot on your personal preference, whether you really need the chef's knife or if you don't mind working with the small paring knife. I'm sure a lot of it's going to have to do with how much prep work you're doing with your knife and what kind of cutting and slicing and chopping you do. The other alternate I was thinking of was a smaller chef's knife, like a 6-inch chef's knife. I've used one of those from my wife's Gerber set. I find it to be a little bit on the small side, but I may find that I prefer it over this little paring knife guy, so we'll see. I'm going to try some different things, share my thoughts with you, and I hope you'll let me know what your thoughts and feelings are as well. But again, I think a lot of it's personal preference. Chefs' cooking knives are really probably one of the primary things that people's personal preference comes out with. And also, again, I think it depends on what kind of stuff you're doing. If you're doing a lot of fine dice and stuff, you'd probably give up the space for the big chef's knife just because it works a lot better than a small knife for that. This is my string cheese. It's not part of the recipe, but I was getting hungry at the store and I figured I'd better have a snack so that I didn't eat everything in sight once I cooked it. You'll notice I'm using a plate as a work surface. It turns out this hotel is not very well stocked, and there are no cutting boards. There's actually not even any paper towels, and the knives I had to choose from that they provided were 2 very cheap steak knives, including this one that has a rather pronounced bend at the tip, and some inexpensive butter knives. So I looked at the store for a small cutting board, but it seemed kind of overkill to spend $6 on a bar sideboard for just this one dish. So I'm going to give it a whirl this way, and we'll see how it goes. And I may end up breaking down and buying something. I was thinking those thin mat cutting boards might be a good option, since it would be something that shouldn't cut too much and would travel easily. But ideally you would actually have a cutting board when you needed it. But then again, you may be working on something where you don't have much of any kitchen at all. I was actually thinking of doing that as a segment or a series later on, I want to call it like guerrilla cooking, where you are cooking on the road and you don't have any equipment except for what you bring, so you could be using a hot pot or one of those electric just freestanding burner units, or maybe camp cook camping, like a butane stove or alcohol stove. So in that case, you'd be bringing everything. So I was thinking some of these options of bringing your knife, bringing your cutting board or cutting surface may not be so far-fetched after all. Back to what we're working on here. I like garlic a lot, and I believe we're going to end up making about 4 servings of pasta sauce. Yeah, the jar says 4 to 5 servings. And so, A, I don't mind eating chunks of garlic as long as they're not raw, and B, I'm trying to minimize the amount of cutting I do on this hard ceramic plate, since it's not probably doing any favors to the edge of my knife. So I'm probably going to keep this pretty coarsely sliced. Probably going to do just like a fine, well, not a fine, kind of for garlic, a rough mince. So I'm just going through it, what is that, maybe between an 1/8 and 1/4 inch slices, and then I'm probably just going to go across them crossways once, so we'll have these slivers basically, and I'll get those. Basically, I'm just going to saute them until they start getting soft a little bit. I don't want them browned and caramelized, because then they get kind of a different, stronger, bitter flavor. And I want these to stay fairly close to raw, just enough to take that edge off of it that the raw garlic has. Get these broken down. And here's another disadvantage of using this plate, is I can't really, not that I'm the master of chefly knife skills to begin with, but I can't really get in here and maneuver my hand the way I'd probably like to. Important safety tip, not that I have a network for you to sue, but if I did, I would be obligated to tell you to please be careful to keep your people parts out of the way of the knife, so that you don't end up adding any extra unpleasant seasoning to your dish. It's probably a little more textbook, but it's also hard to do with these small chunks of garlic. At home, I probably would be lazy and use the garlic press and just have smaller chunks for this, but I think this should do all right for us. And so I'm planning to use this small stock pot for the sauce, and then we have the large stock pot to do the pasta in. This is probably a little bit smaller than ideal, but our other choice is this small fry pan, and I don't really think it's doing us any, doesn't really gain us anything. So I've got some olive oil. Normally I probably would not be using extra virgin olive oil just for saute, but as you can see, our choice was a 16-ounce bottle of whatever olive oil was the smallest ones I could find at the market, and this is again is going to be plenty for a week or more, so I'll use extra virgin for this, even though I probably wouldn't normally, and that way I can also use it for salads or other types of cooking later. So we'll go ahead and get our burner going. I'll make the possibly wildly erroneous assumption that the front knob is going to control the front burner. I'm just wincing every time I'm banging the knife against that plate, because I'm lazy and I don't like to sharpen the knives more often than I have to. I'll move it in there. Oh, I see that element's heating up, so I'm going to turn the heat down kind of low. So we've got our garlic in there. We've got heat. I've got that set on medium-low. I'm going to use my one utensil, which is a slotted spoon. I have to say I haven't stayed in a lot of extended stay hotels until prior to now. Maybe only 3 so far. but this one is by far the most poorly stocked kitchenette I've ever been in. I don't have a corkscrew. I don't have anything other than the slotted spoon. 2 spoons, 1 bowl, and several plates. So yeah, it's kind of hit or miss, but well, I can feel it warming up, but it seems to be taking its time. So we'll do some magical video time lapse and come back when the garlic's actually starting to cook.